Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. We are kind of an Arsenal podcast for the first two games we're going to talk about, but not the third game. That game we deny all knowledge of being an Arsenal podcast with... Oh, that's me. That's bloody thing. Nothing because you can't mute it when you're waiting for it to start. That's what I found out. It's taken me 8 years to figure that out. Right, with me tonight, first of all, it's Sophie from the left-hand side of the US of A. All right, Soph?
I'm all right. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I was listening to your podcast a little bit earlier. Do you want to tell people the name of your podcast? They should know. They should have subscribed, but tell them anyway.
They should have. We're still somehow trying to find a larger audience, but that's okay. It's not a Bergkamp Wonderland. No, it's Highbury Squad, and it's with myself and Amanda and Kevin Campbell. And we just had the great Ian Stone on there, so check us out. Yeah,
and that's Ian Stone from the Tuesday Club and the Athletic podcast that has the worst named Arsenal podcast in the history of Arsenal podcasts. A little bit handbrake off. I think Wenger said that once, and they've called a podcast after it. And when you've got people like Stoney and Amy Lawrence and James and a couple of and Dilly Dixon, magnificent people. They should have a magnificent name. Someone at the Athletic.
Should we try and come up with a new name for them and put it out there?
The Amy Lawrence podcast. Amy and Dicko. There you go.
I was going to say Lee Dixon gets angry at everything. That's a good name for it.
Well, Lawrence was a good poet, right? So that's she waxes lyrical about football. So that could be the Lawrence podcast or the Lawrence show. But anyway, I digress.
Yes, we do. Dandy in the chat said, "Who died?" Well, lots of people.
Shit! Wow, is that how bad we look?
It's all day, every day. People are dropping dead. You have to be a little bit more. There's nearly 8 billion people on the planet dropping like flies, depending on where you are. Right. Also, from the right-hand side of the US of A, it's John from. Is it called 305 Cast, John? It's not, is it? It's the Miami.
It's like a nickname for it. It's the Arsenal Miami podcast, but we call it 305 Cast.
Right. Good. I was on it this week with John. Sophie's giving it the hand signal.
She gets it.
Yeah, so I was on with John this week. We had about a 45-minute chat, and then I'm so vain. I listened back to it and then realised he added 5 minutes at the beginning where he was doing a little intro to it, which I thought that's a nice touch. We don't think of doing that. If we don't do it live, we don't do it at all. We're too lazy to add new stuff at the beginning. It's all I can do just to add the intro and outro. That wears me out.
John's beard is epic, by the way. That is one beautifully crafted piece of art there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. You know, I try not to shave it as much. It's like my playoff beard for this quarantine. You know, I'm not going to even touch it.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it until after the FA Cup final.
I'm not even going to. Yeah. Fair.
Okay. All right. Cool. Right.
My beard was quite long, and then I was sitting in bed the other day, and I was itching like this, and there was something stuck on me here. And I pulled it off, and it was a lump of chili sauce. And then I felt it was in my beard, and it dripped down my beard onto my chest. And I don't know how many days it had been there. And I thought, time for the beard to go. Do you have any food problems in your beard, John, or do you wash?
Oh, I do, and I use oil and stuff. You got to keep it. Nice.
You're on the wrong podcast. You need to be on the Hipsters podcast with Chris and Josh.
I guess.
True.
Yeah.
Talking of people with dodgy facial hair that are now no longer allowed within 20 square miles of any schools, it's our Josh. Oh, cheeky.
Hey, yeah, beards aren't cool anymore. Sorry, John. It's all now.
I'll just shave it.
Yeah, yours will be better than mine. That's the problem. I can't be having that. At least I've got the best. At least I've got the best moustache on the podcast. Yeah, sorry, Sophie.
Well, I don't know, mate. I mean, you haven't seen you got mine up close, just a little bit.
Depends on whether there's been a 2-for-1 on the Veet, whether Sophie can beat you or not.
We've been in lockdown. You can imagine what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there.
But dear God, hilarious.
But yes, Danny, it is nice to be on, and thank God I didn't have to do the Villa podcasts to bring it back onto
Poor
football.
Old Jace and Richard and Ellis, they did that. I'd have turned it on and gone, what? So what? See you later. That was the short. He was wrapping up after half an hour. Jeez, that was what a terrible. We're not going to talk about that anyway. Oh, so I found out here that Alexander says your pod title says "Death of the King." I honestly thought an Arsenal legend had passed. No, it's is it is it Shakespeare? The king is dead, long live the king, or something like that. I just thought, well, because Pep was the king and the new king is Arteta, as we have seen. And that has brought us brilliantly into talking about the Liverpool game. Sophie, your thoughts on the Liverpool game? The only notes I've made for this are, what do you think were the key points, and did you expect it?
Okay, so believe me or not, and you can go back and look at the record, but I actually put a tweet out where I said I fancied us against Liverpool. I don't know, sometimes you wake up on game day and there's a vibe and you feel it in your stomach, and there was something about the pursuit of the 100 for Liverpool that I felt that was their last kind of trying to really solidify them as the supposed greatest team ever in the Premier League. If we look at the evidence, they were going for the quadruple when it all started. They get knocked out the FA Cup. They get knocked out of the League Cup. They get knocked out of the Champions League against Atletico in really quite a dominating way. And then what was left for them was this pursuit of the 100. But also, if we rewind a little bit further into the season, it was the pursuit of invincibility, and how everybody was lauding them and the media was lauding them that this was going to be the case. And everyone kind of looked to this game against Arsenal as maybe the game that the original Invincibles and the only team in the Premier League to have that gold Premier League trophy could stop them. Now, we didn't stop them from becoming invincible, but we did stop them from reaching that landmark that they wanted to surpass against Manchester City. And I don't care how you splice it or what people say, Klopp wanted to win that game really badly. They had their best team out, barring Jordan Henderson starting. And I don't care what happened in the Villa game. The two games I think Arteta really wanted to make a statement against, and the two areas, one area where you could argue that most Arsenal fans say that we lack impotence mentally, we lack drive, we lack engagement, we lack that full 90 minutes of soaking up pressure or then taking a lead and finishing off a game, is against any top six team. And what we did against Liverpool was an absolute masterclass. Now, did we get lucky in certain instances? Yes. But there are other teams that have had 2 shots on goal versus 22 of their opposing team, and they've been lauded for a defensive masterclass. And I think that Arteta learned a lot in his lesson from the first game when we came back from Project Restart with City, and then he learned a lot against that game with Tottenham. That loss actually helped us, I think, and galvanized us to do better in the Liverpool and City game. So I'm not going to say I sat here and I predicted it, but I did fancy us in that game. And I think we delivered on every level, and we put in a defensive performance that we've all been dreaming of, to be honest with you. We've lacked so much of that. And to come out of that performance and beat the supposed best team in Europe, I thought was a phenomenal result.
Yeah, I was massively impressed with it. And I actually was clapping my hands and squealing like a little girl meeting Chris for the first time. It was an amazing thing to see, wasn't it, John? What was your thoughts on the game? And did you, like Sophie, kind of think we're with a chance here? And like Sophie brought up a really good point there, where she said from after the Project Restart began, Arteta has learned and adapted the way that we play football already for when we're taking on Liverpool and later on Man City. And what a defensive performance that was. Did we have like 31% possession?
Yeah.
Yes. What were your thoughts on the game? Were you massively impressed?
Yes, and unlike I did not have any expectations going into it. I definitely did not think we were going to win that one. Yeah, so I mean, in retrospect, probably the writing might have been on the wall, but at least for what I was looking in terms of coming into that game, especially off of the North London derby, it was very, very disappointing. Although we have seen this Arsenal side been able to bounce back before, not necessarily with Arteta, but just these group of players, because we know they have it in them. When they go down, they can come back and put on performance. We did it under Emery all the time, and it kind of kept that train going for a while. So I definitely saw the possibility of it happening, but in terms of whether I thought it was actually realistic that we could get a result, and not only just get a result, the kind of result that we got in the defensive performance that we gave, I absolutely did not think that we were going to do it. So I was really, really happy. And we saw a lot of players that might have been what we would consider on the fringes for a while, especially with like Luiz, and that all of a sudden kind of come in and make a statement, which is important because we hear about all these players like Luiz and their importance in the locker room and kind of that's being one of the reasons why we probably gave him an extension for his contract. And when you're looking at performances like that, you can kind of get a sense of maybe why that happened. Whether you agree with it or not, you at least can look at that performance and see, all right, this is a launching point for us potentially going forward. And we'll talk about the City match as well. But I think that it was good for the confidence of this team more so than anything, I think. And you're absolutely right. I think it was a stamp that Arteta placed that really kind of expounded on this fact that he's adapting to this league and learning what to do with these players and what they're capable of.
Yeah, go on, Josh.
I was going to say the Lacazette goal, I think, is the huge turning point on that entire game, because it's not just any Liverpool player that makes a mistake. It's Virgil van Dijk, the apparent god to centre-backs. Sergio Ramos apparently, walks in his shadow, according to certain people on Merseyside. So for him you could see that almost the rest of the Liverpool team went, what? Virgil van Dijk made a mistake. And they just completely fell apart from that. And you could see that he kind of sets the standard for them, especially as I think he was captain that night as well with Henderson. I think, well, I don't rate Henderson as a player, but we can avoid the fact that he wasn't on the field. So I'm pretty sure it was Van Dijk that was there. The fact that he makes that mistake, I think, is huge. It's huge for us and our belief, because then we start running at him and we're realizing we can get through from this. Plucky little Nelson has gone and, toppled Van Dijk to get past him and lay in Lacazette. So, yeah, I think it's superb.
The pressure we put on them, any other team's getting lauded for that. You're right, Josh. The manner in which we scored our 2 goals, I think, is a testament to Arteta's coaching up, being adaptable. And the players, though, more than anything, and I think this is the key to the new Arsenal DNA potentially under Arteta, is they're listening and they're soaking up what he's saying. And you're seeing, I think the Villa game is an example of a team being exhausted after going to war with 2 giants, in the space of 10 days. But what he's done and the adaptability of this team and what he's shown for them to show that type of integrity and that pressing, I think is really huge, because we've not seen our team respond. And I think him getting them to respond is massive.
I think.
Go on. Sorry, John. I was going to ask Sophie a question when you're done.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's the same thing we saw against Spurs, to be honest. That last 20 minutes was a team that was mentally fatigued. Mustafi didn't suddenly become a bad player. He's just spent 3 or 4 games being, just mentally fit, mentally sharp. And he just lost that. And I think we saw the same from Kolasinac as well. And it's why, we didn't see Kolasinac feature in the Liverpool game. We saw Tierney instead. And we saw Saka in that kind of hybrid role. And there were so many nice little details in this game, more so than just, the fact that Liverpool were a little bit hungover and went to the tried and tested, give it to the full-backs, and they'll just put in 1,000 crosses. The fact that we're also helped with the fact that Mane and Salah don't seem to want to pass to each other anymore. They just couldn't create anything through the middle. So it's where I was kind of pleased for us to beat Liverpool. I thought City would be a completely different game because of how they come straight through the middle and how they've got that creativity to break down sides. But yeah, Danny, you wanted to ask a
John,
question.
do you want to make a point, John? And then I've got a question for Sophie that she brought up a really interesting point on her pod.
Yeah, just really briefly to piggyback on this conversation that we're having. One other thing that I think is extremely important, we kind of touched on it, is the mental effect that this and the confidence that this is going to have on these players. When you know that you could go against the best team in Europe and get a result, and then without even talking about City, just looking at Liverpool, I think that a lot of that result allowed us to get a result against City as well, because we knew that we could do it if they just followed Arteta, if they just knew where they were supposed to be, and if they followed the game plan, then they'd be able to get a result. So psychologically, I think it was a really important win.
Yeah, listen to the manager and we're going to do well. So if you brought up a point on your pod, I'm not sure who said it, but one of you said that the players had given up. And then one of you asked Kevin Campbell, you don't give up, do you? And Kevin Campbell, who said what? And what was the Kevin Campbell's point?
In which game? In the Liverpool game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone said Liverpool weren't playing up to their full because they won the league and they kind of given up, and then Kevin Campbell went, no.
Yeah, Kevin and I were totally not on board with that, because I think it was Amanda and who was on the show that day, I can't remember, but I just want to before I kind of sweep into this, it goes into this too with what John was saying. We can beat Liverpool and we can beat City, but in order for our team to evolve and truly get on a new path to being competitive in the league again, it's all about consistency. You can't beat Liverpool, you can't beat City, and then go and lose to Aston Villa. In this realm we're in right now with Arsenal, we understand that that's possible. But in order for us to evolve and get better, we've got to move past that. And I think it was a lesson for Arteta to get back to earth a little bit after 2 insane performances and say, as much as I think some of these players have improved under me, are they enough for me to get Arsenal to the next level? And to go back to your question as well, Danny, is Liverpool wanted to win that game badly. They wanted to win it to put an asterisk against their name, not on the side of people thinking Project Restart, it's different. You've won the league and it's different. You know, we've come back. Football's different. They wanted to put an asterisk on being the best recorded team in history to win the Premier League. They failed at that. They failed at the treble. They failed at going invincible. So this game, Danny, was really super important to them. And Casey and I truly believe that when you looked at Klopp's reaction, guys, his facial expressions, he was flawed. He was actually not expecting that.
He didn't know what to do, did he?
There's that level of arrogance that Lampard was talking about. Whoa, this is happening to my team, my Liverpool? What? This Arsenal bag of shit that everyone's been talking about? Yes, Arteta's doing that to you, mate. And you know damn well you wanted to win this game. Don't think for a second they took their foot off the gas or they had their towels at the beach. No way. They wanted to win that badly.
Josh, do you think Sophie said that because you don't go and beat those two, then lose to Villa? Do you think there's a teeny-weeny little excuse, the fact that we played 5 really important games in the space of 12 days or whatever, how many days? Or do you think that it could be the only way that Pep, because I'm just highlighting his messages, that Arteta could maybe let them off, give them a little bit of slack because of that? Because that's been not only a hell of a run-in, but against some massively important teams, hasn't it?
I don't think Arteta's the kind of man that will... I think he'll go in hard on them, but not as hard as he would.
No
because
teacups.
of the fact that yeah, absolutely. He's not smashing pots and pans everywhere to go and, really read them the riot act. I think he's still obviously clearly been disappointed, but if we look at other teams in the league, since the restart, obviously we had that game in hand that we had to play, and we've also played 2 FA Cup fixtures in that time. Maybe 3 after Man City. Is it 2?
Yeah, Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. Bournemouth was prior, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you played 2 more. So that is, 3 fixtures more than Aston Villa have played. And this isn't an Aston Villa side, although I think, as Sophie said, that Liverpool wanted to win that game. I think there was already part of them in the back of their head that, I saw 3 seasons ago, a Brighton side who had been promoted with 4 games to play and they could have won the title. They were all hungover when they came out for their next game, mainly because I saw some of their players out drinking. So I could definitely say that that's what they were doing. But I think there was something missing from that Liverpool side that we played in general. I can't say what it was, but there was just something intangible that they weren't at 100%.
Did they take us for granted, do you think?
I think they definitely took us for granted because we've been a pushover prior to that. They saw what happened at the last 20 minutes of us at not White Hart Lane or whatever it's called now, that they could get at us and our fullbacks were a problem. They could get in behind. Mane and Salah could have it, but they just didn't expect us to mark them out of the game.
It's so funny. It's so funny how we've been so bad that when we're good, we can't give ourselves credit. We look at the other team and what they failed to do versus what we did really well. And I really truly believe in this game, if Salah, Mane, Firmino, Van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold weren't playing, I'd say yes. But this is the same team that's been lauded, Josh, all season for being completely, insanely the best team supposedly ever that we've seen. Van Dijk has been compared to the Vidic and the Ferdinands and the Adams and the John Terrys of the world as the greatest defender with only winning one title. Like, I think we need to just take a step back and say, we out-coached them in this match. And it's okay for us to think that without thinking we're going overboard, saying that we're better than Liverpool. I think that's the fine line fans don't want to cross. And maybe folks like you and I are very weary of crossing. But it's okay for us to say, you know what? In this game, we beat them fair and square.
Yeah, absolutely. They ran out of ideas in that game. And that's the proof that we beat them tactically. This wasn't the fact we got lucky by any stretch of the imagination. This is also a Liverpool side that failed to beat Burnley when restart came and kicked off again. It's the only reason they don't have a 100% record at Anfield this season is purely because they got a draw against Burnley when they came back. So I think this is a side that, wasn't firing on all cylinders. But you know what? As they say, it's a sign of a good champion that when you're playing badly, you beat sides, and they didn't beat us. Yeah,
John,
sorry, John.
Muted.
Yeah, and at least it's something that you mentioned earlier about consistency, and I think that notion of maybe it was them, not us, that caused this result goes away when you put more consistent results in like that. Which is why the City result was so important, because I think it gave a reasonable doubt that it was just luck at the Liverpool game, right? But then, because once again consistency, then we go and we play Aston Villa, and now it's up in the air slightly again. So had we got,
but we also made a lot of changes in that game, didn't we?
Yes,
right?
That's where I was getting. I was saying that I think that there's a little bit of an asterisk around that because of the personnel that we had on the pitch and what we're looking forward to and what we really needed out of that match, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But this notion that you mentioned earlier of consistency, I think, is absolutely spot on, and one of the reasons why I think that you start looking at games in a certain way in terms of result, whether we win or whether they let us win.
Yeah, that's very true. John, while you're on this, do you want to start off our chat about the Man City game? Same question as it was for the Liverpool one. Did you see this coming? I imagine, going by your answers to the Liverpool one, you didn't expect us to win this. I had Man City down as a 6-0, maybe a 5 because Aguero weren't starting. How did you feel about the game before it started, and what did you think was going to happen? Because I thought we were going to get hammered.
Right. So I thought we were going to get hammered. I think that it was kind of the same logic that I was just explaining, how we don't have consistency. So I'm thinking, all right, we ran out of whatever luck we possibly had. You know, I want to think that we did really well against Liverpool, and I want to think that it was because we, were in the right place and capitalized. But there's always that little inkling of doubt that you have just knowing this Arsenal side and been an Arsenal fan for as long.
That's what has been beaten into us in the last decade.
It's like classical conditioning that I cannot go into a match against a top team like that extremely confident. But that being said, with the FA Cup, it's been our thing. Wembley has been our place of business for a while now, and I think that if I had any hope, it was because it was at Wembley, and we've done it before in a semifinal. Obviously, that Man City team was not as good as the one we played right now by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still a dangerous side. So maybe, you can get something out of it now. I am like you, though. I ultimately did not have much expectations going into that match. I knew that Arteta was going to need to get it spot on and control people like De Bruyne, was going to need to control the midfield, was going to need to deal with some of the wingers that they have. And I thought that the way that we approached that defensively and kind of neutralized certain players and was able to get back into a cohesive formation that was able to stifle City's attack going forward was absolutely incredible. And it was stunning. And it was because of that history that we have and that maybe slight PTSD being an Arsenal fan, I wasn't really satisfied until like the 80th minute. And then I really started to get nervous because I was watching with a friend. I'm going, what do you think? You think we could score 3 against us in 10 minutes? And he's going, I don't know, maybe. And I'm going, you're right. So I'm going, where is the capitulation going to happen? But that was nothing that was reflective on the field watching the game that day, right? That was all in my head based off of what I've seen from Arsenal before. And that's where consistency come in. And that's where being able to know that Arteta is going to get the best out of these players, and they're going to listen to what he has to say, and that his plan is going to be effectuated properly. So I think it was absolutely wonderful. It was one of my favorite matches I've seen. You can call it an away performance. I think the last time everyone kind of looks at this basis for an away performance that we've had, as much as you can consider Wembley away, as the last time we played City away in like 2015 or whatever with, Coquelin and Santi Cazorla in the midfield. It was this incredible performance. Obviously, we've come a long way since then. So it was good to see us back-to-back wins against major teams. And look, we're in the FA Cup final now. So we're looking at it going, maybe what could happen, but we did it. So here we are.
I think
yeah, Josh, you didn't do the live show, did you? You did the Liverpool one, which is why you didn't say much on Liverpool. So when John was saying that, I had a brilliant question that asked. Well, I think it was brilliant. Pet, if I call Arteta Pet one more time, will someone come around and slap me? Arteta has now, in six months of the season, beaten Man United 2-0, beaten Chelsea. Beat Liverpool 2-1, and beating Man City 2-0. This is an Arsenal side who historically, because we got Arsenal PTSD, as John said, we don't beat the big boys, and he's done 3 already this season, hasn't he? I mean, talk about that and the Man City game and what you expected, because like I said, you didn't do the live show, did you?
No, I didn't do the live show. I think the fact that we had beaten Liverpool, as much as it's given the players belief, it gave the fan base a belief as well. And I think the loss against Spurs, I know I've kind of gone over it already. We want to mention how much of a motivator that would have been in the dressing room, that the players had to repay the fans, because not only did we lose to Tottenham and there was no fans there to give them any kind of shtick or anything from that, but St. Tottering's Day wasn't happening either. I think Arteta's a lot closer to what that means. The Arsenal dressing room that he was in, to let you know about what North London derbies meant, was one helmed by Wenger, and had those kind of, you had Per Mertesacker in there who completely understood the North London derby, and trying to go back through who was still in there. You still had Jack Wilshere as well. He would have learned the North London derby of Jack Wilshere.
And Bellerin's been around long enough to know what that means.
Bellerin's been in there as well, for sure. And I think having that coming from the top, that's something that Emery didn't necessarily have. And maybe, Freddie definitely would. Freddie knew what a North London derby meant, but I think there was so much of that coming round. The players would have known how much, if they didn't know how much losing to Tottenham meant to the football club, they definitely did afterwards. And I think it gave them that extra fire to get something that we could really celebrate. And that is the FA Cup. And I know some people saying we kind of parked the bus against City. I'm like, City are going to have 70% of possession in any game that they play.
Whether you want them to
be
or
honest.
Not.
Exactly. If we were playing Burnley and they had 70% of the possession, yeah, I'm concerned. This was Man City. Exactly. This is Man City. This is a decent footballing side that are trying to play it out the back. And you saw what we did. We just stopped all passing lanes. So the only options was Laporte back to Ederson, Ederson back to, Garcia was our other centre-back. There were only options. The job Lacazette did in that game in false 9 position, I mean, I'd build him a statue for that, to be honest. It's just him and then Gundogan in his pocket.
No wonder
that's the statue.
That game, he spent so much, he was everywhere, so much time doing all that work.
This is what people don't appreciate about Laka, is what he does off the ball. He's actually a genius off the ball. Sorry, Josh. Carry on, mate.
No, absolutely. I mean, we'll go to Villa and say he's not a great creative asset from there. When you think of a false 9, you might think of Cesc Fabregas in the Spain World Cup that they won, playing in that kind of position, or Messi for Barcelona. You're thinking of these hugely creative players that aren't really strikers. But the job he did wasn't creative. He was there to be destructive and just stopped Gundogan being able to pick the ball up deep, or if it was De Bruyne coming in deep, he'd go and get close to them. And that was the thing we saw. We just stopped them so early being able to build that I'm not worried about the possession, to be honest. And I think anybody who is worried about it, to be honest, just scroll further back up the stats and you'll see the scoreline. And then remember, that's the one that mattered from that one. And the fact that we were in an FA Cup final. And as I say, no one remembers the person that loses in a cup game. Nobody. They just remember the winners. History is written by the winners. And it's exactly how cup says. No one's going to go, oh, you got to the final, but you only got 30% possession against Man City when you beat them 2-0. Not going to happen. So I think that's my big thing from that Man City performance was Lacazette, and then just how we caught City on their weak points. Kyle Walker, I think he's played more or less every game for them. He's got tired legs. We've rotated out. They necessarily haven't. And Benjamin Mendy, who for 52 million pounds, he's not a great left back, is he? Not a great left back, and we exploited it. This City isn't invincible, and I think we found their weaknesses. Sorry,
Josh. No, Josh, because that first goal, I think people kind of stick to the last two passes before Aubameyang's finish, but we played some vintage Arsenal before it even got to the Pepe cross, didn't we? Yeah. It was playing City at their own game, and you're right. Like it was just that first goal. If City had scored that against us again, I think we're a dartboard and have been because of our inconsistency, which has been our Achilles heel. That first goal was just beautiful, the way we broke them down, and those plays that you're talking about on the City side. I mean, we beat them at their own game in that movement, and how we finished there was unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. And to continue on that, it also goes to show that the fact that we didn't have the ball didn't mean we didn't want it, because when we had it, boy, did we show we could do something with it. It was all part of the game plan, the way we just cut through them. And yeah, as you say, there's just a complete team goal from that. I think the most annoying thing about it is the fact if you go through the highlights packages that the FA put up, the goal is 2 passes. It's a Pepe cross and a Aubameyang on the end of it. And you're like, what's going on? But after seeing him mess up, I mean, the names I called Aubameyang when he missed that first chance against Ederson. Oh, let's just say if there was a swear jar in my flat, it would be overflowing. But
it was like a giant game of chess, wasn't it? And sometimes the look on Pep's face, he wanted to knock his queen. Do you knock your queen or your king over when you give up? You quit.
King. What's your king?
Yeah, I've not played. I was in the chess league at school when I was about 8 or 9. That's how I learned to play. He looked like he wanted to knock it over. He sat there going, like Klopp was, I don't know what to do. But they've given us the ball. I don't know what to do. Everything we do, they nullify. And then, like you were saying, Josh, they have to resort to giving the ball back to the goalkeeper and having him be their number 10. And when you saw De Bruyne was having absolutely no luck and Lacazette running his arse off in midfield, if you look back at the last 5 or 6 games, John, that we have played with Lacazette, not only is he scoring goals, he's setting people up, he's got assists, and then he puts in a performance like that against Man City, and people still say, I think we should get rid of him. He's almost nullified the number 10 position with the amount of work that he does, hasn't he? Like we were saying on your show.
Yeah, it's really interesting the kind of position that he's been taking up. It's so you look at the Aston Villa match as a perfect example. I mean, he was almost a defensive midfielder for the entirety of the match, and whether or not that worked in that game is clearly up for debate. But I think when you're looking at that, he took up similar performances or positions rather in the City match and against Liverpool. So what he does when it works is absolutely, it's great. It's great. When it doesn't work, I think that some of that's attributable to him, but I think a lot of it is just an overall lack of creativity that this midfield had, which is a whole another story. So it's interesting to see kind of how that position's being used, how Lacazette's rather being used in that position. He's certainly not this kind of darting into the box center forward. He's more of a bringing back and acting almost as if he's like another midfielder, being able to get the ball to the attacking players and hold it up long enough for players like Aubameyang and Pepe and Ceballos to kind of interplay with him and get the ball into dangerous areas. So when you're looking at it from a tactical perspective, he's the kind of perfect player for that role. And for me, the issue with Lacazette wasn't what can he offer this team in a certain role, because obviously there's a place for him. The question for me was there a case where, because he's not a center forward to score goals, the off the ball contribution and the way he's being used tactically, does it outweigh the fact that he's not scoring goals as center forward? Because we know when you look at other teams and top teams in the league, Liverpool is a perfect example. Your center forward doesn't need to be scoring goals for you to be successful. In fact, I don't even know if Firmino has even scored a goal at Anfield this entire season. So when you're looking at what you're asking a center forward to do and what Lacazette's doing, if his off the ball movement and if his tactical awareness, being able to bring other players into it, being able to kind of tire out defenders throughout a match, if that outweighs his lack of goal scoring, I think that it's going to be an absolute selection for Arteta. It should be interesting to see whether once he gets a more creative midfield, he wants to keep going forward with that, or whether he wants to try to evolve it to implement Lacazette's style, dropping deep a little bit more. It should be really interesting to see what he does with that.
Yeah, so Archie makes a good point here. He says you can't have it both ways. Either he scores as a striker or he creates. Which is it? Because it's neither. Stan, who was on the pod a couple of weeks ago, he said he's going to trademark the false 8 position, because that's almost like what he is, isn't it, at times?
It is. But I think if we just take one step back and look at what Lacazette being asked to do versus what his true talent is, right? And how we've known him at Lyon and the reasons why Arsenal bought him as a player. What Arteta is trying to do, a lot like Pep, a lot like other really good managers, even like a Simeone, is he's building a squad and a system. And he wants players to play into a system that's adaptable. Because a little bit like Pep, he's a crazy scientist. He'll play a left back in midfield or a midfielder at right back, because he has so much faith and trust in his coaching. And so what's happening at Arsenal are two things. We're expecting results on the pitch and players like Lacazette to be adaptable and for us to see him excel every single game. But what is also being asked is Arteta's trying to change the DNA and the culture of the team and the mentality of the team. And so that's why we see phenomenal performances like against Liverpool and City, where players are mentally engaged. It's almost like a one-off game where the stakes are high and they can laser focus on that. But going throughout an entire season, 38 games in the Premier League, that takes so much mental engagement. It takes adaptability. And I think players like Lacazette bring a lot of options to Arteta because he is versatile. Aubameyang's versatile too, but I think we all believe that his best position and he's most prolific when he's playing right down the middle as the main striker. But I think Lacazette's underappreciated sometimes because people expect him to be scoring all of these goals because that's why we bought him. But adapting to the Arteta philosophy and Arteta's team and what he wants to build at Arsenal, you could argue that Lacazette becomes a very valuable asset. And especially when a Martinelli comes back and you have Martinelli's speed, his quick thinking, his football prowess, his mental attitude, and what he, Saka, Lacazette, Oba, I think Pepe is still a work in progress. For me, I'd think twice about wanting to sell somebody like Lacazette because I think in Arteta's world and the way Arteta wants to build the team, he brings a lot of options to him and for him. But I think this is why I respect Lacazette a lot, because he's been asked to do things that maybe he wasn't expected to do when he first came at Arsenal. And that's all part of the rebuild of Arsenal culture, DNA, and who we want to be as a football team, and have this team be a mirror of Arteta and an image of Arteta, which is why Klopp has succeeded at Liverpool, why Conte did at Chelsea, why Fergie did it at Man United, even why Lampard's having success. He's building the team in his image. And I think that's what Arteta's trying to do. And players like Lacazette, I think, will help achieve that.
Also to say that we also need to look at our strength is on the wings at the moment. We saw that against Villa, to be honest. We saw we had no creativity from the forward line. It's all Pepe, it's your Nelson, Aubameyang out there to a certain extent. But then you look and see it's because our midfield is so poor. Arteta's come in to a squad that was being set up to become like a very functional midfield. You could see what Emery was trying to do. He was trying to basically replicate what Liverpool had done, where you've got this midfield. You wouldn't say most of those Liverpool midfielders would get into our midfield if we wanted to play the kind of football Arteta wants to play. They're not technical players. They're just ball carriers and hustlers. That's all they're really doing. And that's the problem, is Arteta's trying to get a decent midfield out of what we've got. And Laka having to come short is the only way that he's really seen it achieved with some kind of result. It's the same as, David Luiz sitting in the middle of a 3. It frees him up to come into the midfield because, again, we don't have that quality there. And it's why it's so key in the summer that I think we'll see a midfielder come in, probably a couple of them, and then we'll see us drop back to a 3 in midfield, maybe a more conventional 4-3-3 rather than this 3 at the back system, because Arteta's trying to get, he's making the most of what he's got, to be honest. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly.
Gary.
No, exactly.
John?
Bang on.
Yeah. So first, I see the chat's pointing out that Firmino did actually score at home 1 goal at Anfield. So that's right. You guys are correct. But still, I think the point remains that, when you're looking at what the players producing off the ball versus the goal scored, I think that one can weigh out the other. And Josh brings up an excellent point about us playing from the wings. And that's actually, I was going to bring it up, so I'm glad you did. That's one of the, I think maybe the slight downfalls of Lacazette in the system is because our midfield is so weak right now that we do have to get so much play through the wings. And I feel like when you would not consider Lacazette a target man. I don't think anyone would, because he's not. So when you're relying on balls coming into the box from the wings like that, I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage of us. If there's one big criticism besides maybe the away goal record that he has, even though he scored away right now against in the North London derby, an incredible goal, is that he is not the greatest in terms of a target, right? So if we're going to be playing a lot, it needs to be cutbacks where he's coming in to run into the box or something like that. It's not going to be like that Giroud effect that we had when he was playing for us, where you could just lob a ball in and then it would hit his French forehead, a goal. So that's not happening. That's not happening, right? So if that is the game plan, which I 100% agree that it is, and it was kind of what I was alluding to earlier about how he's going to mold the tactics around that, I think that we need to rethink exactly how we're going to utilize the wings to get balls into dangerous areas, knowing that Lacazette's generally not going to be that target man. He could stop the ball, turn, and shoot. We've seen him do that a lot. But in terms of hitting an aerial ball or something like that, I don't think any of us would really put him in the position where that would be his key focus, and that would be our greatest chance of success. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over time, because I agree with you in terms of what we're doing from the wings.
Very good. Right. Before we move on to the Villa game, people, start with you, Josh, have you seen enough from our results against the likes of Liverpool and Man City, and to a certain extent Spurs, with Lacazette scoring the away goal, brilliant away goal? Have you seen enough from there to think we're going to be able to beat Chelsea in the final, and given you some hope for next season that we're not going to be a mid-table team like we have been for the last 2 years?
Cheers, Danny.
Can we up a roast? That'd be lovely.
Yeah, no worries. Do you want me to eat it for you as well?
And I'll give you a broom as well.
Can we win the final? Yes. Yeah. We saw from the kind of Chelsea-Liverpool game last night that, if Kepa's between those sticks, we've got any chance. There's any chance in there. I think, is his save percentage worse than Claudio Bravo now in the Premier League? It's under 50%. So Xhaka, David Luiz, shoot on sight.
Did they give him a 7-year contract today, Kepa? I'm sure it's either that or the other one whose surname I can't pronounce.
Caballero. It can't be him because he's 37.
Who is?
Caballero, their cup goalkeeper.
Oh, I mean, who's there as Capelletta?
That one, Kepa.
It's in the news today.
Kepa.
One of the Chelsea players has been given a 7-year contract extension.
Well, probably, if I was them, that would go to Pulisic personally. If they have any brains whatsoever. There's only 2 players I'm worried about in this final. It's Giroud, my boy GQ Giroud, and Pulisic. I mean, wow. Can you imagine Pulisic in our team? Think about him. Listen, I'm not jealous of other teams' players other than this is why I love what we did to Kevin De Bruyne, because I love Kevin De Bruyne. We all love Kevin De Bruyne. Everyone was talking about him being the Ballon d'Or winner if City would win the Champions League, right? I mean, the way we nullified him out the game with an average team is quite unbelievable. But it's been a long while, and Hazard did it so well. And there've been players, modern day players, and I'm sure you guys can school me and educate me in who I'm forgetting. But, you know, that was what I loved about Pires. He was so unafraid to take on players, dribble, go past people. Pulisic, I'm not saying he's Pires, but I'm giving you an example of a player that maybe we want Pepe to be right now, and he's not quite there, even though he's been good and he's had a solid season, you could say. He's scored a couple wonder goals. I think he's a growth player. He's not an immediate impact player in every game. Every time Pulisic comes out, you feel like he wants to rip someone's head off and show that he can play football. And I think that's what I like about him, and that's what I want to see more of in Arteta's kind of new DNA. Is players that come out and they just want to rip your head off every single game. And as much as I think Pepe's super talented, I don't see that fire in him. But he's not that kind of player either, so I'm not going to pull him up on that. But my goodness, he's to me the most dangerous. If Frank Lampard doesn't start him and he comes out in like the second half, I almost find that more dangerous than him starting the game in the FA Cup final, to be honest with you.
I've just had a little look, and it was a tweet that I saw from when Kepa signed for Chelsea, and he originally signed a 7-year contract. So that's what I get for not looking at the date and thinking, bloody hell, why have they given a goalkeeper a 7-year deal when he's been there for 2 seasons? Yeah, it's going to be an interesting final with, like you're saying, Pulisic and Giroud, either one of those two. I mean, if it's Giroud, the only good thing I think about Chelsea, they are not a great team, as we saw last night, as Josh was busy laughing at them letting in 5 goals, but they have 2 styles of football. If things are like against Man United should have won that game, and they went, no, we're going to lob it down to Giroud, and Giroud's going to do all the magic. And if they play against a team that they want to play it the other way, they'll play with Pulisic and other players like Willian, and they've got some really good young players there as well. So I'm quite good. John, how do you feel about the final?
First of all, I wanted to just say, as an American, I was very upset that Chelsea signed Pulisic. He's everyone that, you know, we all knew who he was over here. If you follow any kind of like MLS or anything, you know, and when he went to Dortmund, it was like, okay, this is exactly the kind of team that's going to suit him and get him ready for wherever he's going. So, yeah, I really wish that we signed him because he's an excellent talent. He's extremely dangerous. And since the restart, he's been absolutely on fire. So I guess going forward now, what do we have to do? Well, we have to do what we did against City, right? I think the defensive aspect of Chelsea's side is where we can exploit them the most. And we kind of touched on that a little bit. But look, FA Cup finals, we've done pretty damn well. So I'm confident in the sense that I was confident that we were going to Wembley for the City match, but I don't want this team to underestimate this Chelsea side, and I don't think they will, and I hope they don't. But look, you got to really make sure that they're up for this one. It's kind of hard not to get up for a cup final, though, right? So that being said, I mean, we could just look at Europa League and that final. Look, I hope it's more towards what we did against Chelsea the last time we played them in the FA Cup final, and less of what we did when we played Chelsea in the Europa League final coming up now. So
totally different situation as well, I think. The Europa
Agreed.
League final.
Agreed. I think that when you're looking at those two and you're looking at where we were and what the kind of manager we had and what the players believed in with that manager, I think that it's night and day. So I think that we have that going for us. And if we could put in a performance like we did against City, I think that we beat City. City's better than Chelsea. We beat Liverpool. Liverpool's better than Chelsea. We didn't beat Aston Villa, who's not better than Chelsea. But I think that a lot of that had to do with the players that we were playing and the fact that a lot of them maybe didn't want to get injured because we had the game against Chelsea. So in terms of tactics, I think that we need to be concerned with Giroud because we know he's a threat. And I feel like with Mustafi out, Holding's going to come in probably. It's going to be Holding Luiz. And hopefully Holding pulls in a Diego Costa performance like he did in, pocketing him at the last FA Cup final. That would be absolutely wonderful. I don't have the animus that I have towards Giroud, although at the end of that FA Cup final and that whole thing on the bus, it definitely rose to certain levels of that. But look, it's going to be good, hopefully, and it's good that we're actually going to have a chance to win a trophy. It'd be absolutely massive for Arteta. It would be such a huge statement and such a big thing that he's going to tell the board, like, look what I've done. Like, you need to back me. This stuff is working. I think that that's going to be important for him. So hopefully we get something.
I went before the show and I made a list of all the silverware finals, Charity Shield included, that we've played against Chelsea in recent years. In the last 18 years, we've played them 7 times. We won the 2017 FA Cup at the 15 Charity Shield. We won the 2002 FA Cup. Then we lost the League Cup final. We lost the Charity Shield, and we lost the Europa League, and we drew 1 Charity Shield in 2017. So it's all much of a muchness there. So, Josh, do you want to have a final say on the thoughts about the final?
Yeah, I think it's one thing at our advantage is we've both got managers, both sides have got managers who are relatively inexperienced. And from that comes inconsistency in not only the team's performances, but the manager's performances as well. And I think that's a chance of where we can really, that's where our luck can come from, is that Lampard played a final last year. It was a playoff final for Derby. And they didn't get through that, clearly, because Derby is still in the Championship. So I think in terms of cup competitions, Lampard will have that extra fight behind him, or want to try and, prove to himself that he can do something in a final, but that may see him overreach. And this Chelsea side, perhaps not, the tactics of how they go about the game may fall more into our hands. I think Arteta seems a bit more cool and calculated. As
we saw last night with Fat Frank getting the right hump in the game because he was getting smashed. And Arteta, at no point has he ever lost it. He's thought, what's my next move?
Yeah. To be fair, I have to say, to Fat Frank, that was a decent comeback to Klopp. Say,
sit down or something.
No, he said, you win 1 league title and you're given
you get arrogant.
Yeah. Basically, and sit down, which is fair enough if you've got 3 of them to your
and a Champions League and a Europa League and multiple FA Cups.
Yeah,
he can back it up, right?
Exactly. Lampard knows what he's talking about when it comes to that, and if not, he'll get his Uncle Harry on you and he'll break your legs. That's
2017 on repeat, you guys. No one gave us a chance in 2017. We were on our knees again in 2017, and we beat City in the semi, and Holding and he purred like a defensive kitten in that match, did he not? It was a masterclass, and Holding came of age in that match. And I think, as much as people are upset that Mustafi might not be able to play in this, Holding has something to prove too. And the kid's done quite well. And does he make mistakes? Yes. But at the same time, I also think that he's come in and he's done a good job when he's been asked to. Is he going to be the guy that leads us to the promised land and a Premier League title in a Championship defensive team? I'm not sure. But is he worthy of being part of the squad and coming in moments like this? Absolutely. And having spent time with Rob Holding here in LA and stuff, he's such a good kid. Everyone talks about Kieran Tierney and his Tesco bag, but Rob Holding was the original Tesco bag boy. I mean, he's just such a good guy, and he just loves his football, and he's such a hard worker. And to be honest with you, the 2 of them together in this squad, kind of infusing a little bit of a British core. I know you want one Scottish, but that British kind of vibe and feel, understanding what it means to play football, in the Premier League. And we missed that with the Ox and Theo and Callum and a lot of these young kids that were supposed to be this British revolution. It never quite happened. But these 2 guys bring a humbleness to the team that I think is really important.
Yeah, I think with Rob Holding, I think the really interesting thing is his position's changed in the last 4 games. If anybody's noticed it, he's moved from the left side of defence to the right-hand side. And if he's going to have any future under Arteta, it's at the right side of central defence. Because Arteta said a million times he wants a left-footed player at central defence on the left-hand side. Whole reason we went for Pablo Mari is for that reason. And it's why I think we've gone to 3 at the back. It's because you might go, Pep's stubborn about his systems. Well, Arteta's exactly the same, cut from a similar cloth. He is very stubborn when it comes to wanting that left-sided player, or left-footed player in the side. And when we get onto Villa, look how many left-footers we have in that starting 11. There's none. That's why we were so awful.
These are the nuggets that Josh brings to the table that I love.
I didn't even notice that. That is actually a very interesting
I love
point.
this guy.
Yeah, have a look at Rob Holding's position. He's moved over to the right-hand side.
Wow, interesting.
Because when he came through, you wouldn't notice it at Bolton necessarily, because who's watching League One Bolton? To be honest, you'd notice it if you're English and you're watching the under-23s when he was playing there. The guy on the right-hand side, you might recognise him. Callum Chambers was the right-hand side, and Rob Holding was on the left-hand side.
Yep.
And that was the big thing. And he was always on the left-hand side. If you look again to that FA Cup final, he plays on the left-hand side. And he has moved to the right-hand side, which is why I think we didn't see Rob Holding for a couple of weeks. You know, when Mustafi came in, and we were like,
yeah, where's Holding?
Because he played that great game, and then we didn't see him for a couple of weeks. And then you see him come back. It's because he's changed position, and Arteta's been moving him and teaching him for a couple of weeks, moving across to the other side defence. The game's slightly different. How you go into tackles is different. And yeah, I think that's the huge thing to just watch out for, is that we know Rob Holding's a central defender, but he's in, I would say, an unfamiliar position for him anyway.
Saliba's a right. Saliba, Sokratis, Chambers, Mustafi, Luiz, Holding, Mavropanos are all right-footed. Maori and Ledley are left-footed.
Left.
And so who's going to play on the left? When is he going to get Saliba to play on the left?
I think we're going to get another centre-back, to be honest. We'll have another one come in. We've got plenty we need to get rid of, to be honest.
Malang Sarr, he's left-footed. Thiago Silva's right. Tyrone Mings and Nathan Ake are both left-footed. That's just some of the centre-backs we've been linked to.
I'm not sold on Mings yet. Why is everyone lauding this guy? I mean, I always find it interesting. Like Jack Grealish, I think you can see his talent, but he's also been lauded because he's on a team of really poor players that might get relegated. So he shines, right? But that doesn't mean the guy's not talented. But I see Mings. There's so many games I've watched where I think he's a bit mistake prone too. He's got great aerial awareness. I think he's really good in the air, but sometimes when it comes to positional play, I'm not entirely sold. And he's an English player that could end up costing I think we're out of that bracket. I think United or someone go in for someone like him. I don't think we're in the Mings business at all. I think we're in the Saliba, Pablo Mari business.
I don't think we go for any English player really. I think that where we are in terms of the rebuild, it's going to be in the inflated bubble in the Premier League in terms of what you're going to have to pay for English players. I think it really limits what we're going to be going in the market. So I don't think we're going to be looking at players like that.
No, a little bit like Declan Rice too. I mean, he's a good player, but again, what is he? We're talking 50, 60 million here. And it's like, what's the kid done? He's in a really poor West Ham team and he shines every now and again. He scored a great goal the other day, but I think we need to be really careful. I don't think Arsenal are in the business of buying British players like that. We're not financially able to do that. And I don't even think it's the right move to make, to be honest with you, with some of these players being bandied about.
No, I think with especially Tyrone Mings, 27, and he's kind of a defender that he's all right on the ball, to be honest, but all right isn't what we need. He's going to want to come in, be a starting player for us as well. I think we can just do so much better, or even just get someone of a little lower bracket that can be molded as well.
You know what, Josh? I think, someone like Mari, who people haven't seen a lot of, and I was really enjoying watching him in the game where he got his injury after 20 minutes. But pace-wise, he's not going to be that guy. But positionally and that Maldini elegance, I'm not saying he's Maldini. Don't strike me down, everyone who's listening to this. But there's an elegance about him. And Arteta, I trust in Arteta and what he sees. And yes, he didn't make it at City, but are we going to use that as the barometer based on their defense? I mean, I don't think so, right? So I think he's looking for a little bit of what I was saying earlier, players that are going to fit into what he does. They don't have to be 50 million pound players. They just have to be the right player. Martinelli, who I can't wait for that kid to come back like all of us, I'm sure. $8 million, right? what a bargain. That kid could actually get sold for 80 million. Saka, homegrown. And then the Maris of the world and the Salibas of the world. That's the business I think we're in. And I'm cool with that as long as he's able to build that team, that he needs to. And I think that's our mantra, not all of this other British player stuff that everyone's getting sucked into. That's not us.
Right. So now we move on to the Villa game. Put your hand up if you want to say anything.
I gotta go. Sorry.
I could do some of it, but to be fair, I think we heard most of it already. We had 2 incredibly mentally and physically draining games against Liverpool and Man City, and we needed to rotate. And you know what? One thing I will say is, hey, we all miss Granit Xhaka now, don't we? Everybody who said, oh, Xhaka doesn't do anything for this side. Yeah, no, he is absolutely what we needed in there. And it's not just because he's left-footed, to be honest. But if I can, I'm just trying to quickly get up the lineups for it as well, just to double check. But that forward line that we started with, as soon as I saw it, I
thought, what's going on here? How is that going to work? Why? You don't. No one plays 3 forwards. You don't even do that in FIFA, and we all know FIFA's not real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but it is.
I think it was just the game that kind of cemented everybody's kind of lazy assumptions of why things didn't happen. The kind of lazy opinion on Xhaka is, oh, he's shit. Well, look how shit we are when we don't have him. The other one was on Nketiah and why it was an absolute travesty he didn't start for Leeds. Well, you know what? Marcelo Bielsa knows a bit about creative football, and that was the reason. We saw Nketiah can't create anything, and we had him out on the right where most of our kind of creativity has come from, to be honest. And that was the whole reason why he didn't make it at Leeds, is because he's not a creative player. He doesn't.
Didn't we just ask him to come back? It's not that he didn't make it at Leeds. We wanted him to come back. Right?
He wanted to come back.
He's still not one of their top scorers. I mean,
No. But he wanted to come back because he wasn't getting the minutes. And I would have, he came back. Arteta kind of had a look at him, and Bristol City were like, we'll take him, because they would have played a system that worked to Nketiah's strengths, which I don't think is necessarily what you want on a loan. You don't want a player who goes on loan necessarily to have it easy. If Nketiah had stayed there for us the whole season under Bielsa's tutelage, he would have come back a better player because of the training he would have been in week in or week out. Yeah, he wouldn't have come off the bench.
Josh, is he the same age as Greenwood?
No, Greenwood's younger. Greenwood's 18. Nketiah's 20, isn't he?
Is he 20? He's going to be 21.
21. He's at that age. But yeah, they're not the same.
Until he's 21.
Class. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. I think Mason Greenwood's a whole different kettle of fish on that one. He's not the next Mbappe. Can we go in there quickly and say he's not the next Mbappe?
Alan Shearer said that he reckons Mason could break his Premier League goal scoring record.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
I
wouldn't be surprised, but I think the thing that's holding him back is the fact that he's at Man United.
It's a bit early. Just let Harry Kane break it first. I mean,
absolutely.
I think Martinelli will break it first.
People probably said the same about Michael Owen at that time.
Of course.
When Michael Owen was breaking through, I think he levelled the record that Michael Owen's got. He's beaten it for any player at Man United, the teenage goal scoring record. But Owen was fantastic when he came through. The thing that I think makes Greenwood a little bit different to Nketiah is the fact that he is properly two-footed. So there's a bit more. He can beat a man. He can create something out of nothing. Nketiah is very much he does his work within the 6-yard box. I'd say, no, it's doing a disservice to Ian Wright, to be honest, to say he's like Ian Wright. I would say it's more like, and to use a Spurs player, it's more like Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker wasn't a creator. Yes, sorry.
Josh, what if Martinelli's fit right now, right? Tell me, sorry, Danny, I don't mean to jump in and ask a question, but I really want to hear what Josh thinks and everyone. If Martinelli has been fit for the Liverpool game, the City game, the Villa game, what does our front line midfield look like?
Oh, great question. To be honest, I think he comes in for the Villa game and he'd probably come off the bench for a couple of them. But I see his, I don't know, I don't see his.
What is
How do I word it?
Is he a Pulisic? Is he more middle? Is he who? And if he's coming off, if he's coming on, who's coming off? Like, how does it look?
The way we're set up at the moment, he's got very similar attributes to like an early Aubameyang. To be honest, is that winger who's great striker. You don't need to. I think one of the great things, to be honest, is what we've seen in the past couple of seasons, is the movement away from your striker necessarily being all your goals comes from the striker. You know, the golden boot for the last 2-3 seasons has come from a player that has predominantly played on the wing. I mean, I'm utilising the fact that Salah and Mane are in there as well. And Aubameyang, to be fair, did most of his goal scoring from the wing. And we look at some of the prized assets, you know, that I've said I don't want to link anyone to saying they're a bit like Mbappe, but this is where this is purely for positional senses. Mbappe and Martinelli. You know, people would say Mbappe would look brilliant through the middle, but he does all his work on the wing. He gets a bit more space, and he doesn't. You know, he still scores a shed load of goals, even for France. Goes out on the wing because he's got more space, more time to do something, and he's not the focal point. And I think that's the thing that we can find from Martinelli. I mean, he could do it through the middle. There's no shadow of a doubt that he could be a number 9 for Arsenal. But I think he's a bit more exciting on that left wing, a bit like Aubameyang, that he's kind of, you're marking Lacazette or an Nketiah, and it's the guy that's coming in a little bit later, a little bit behind the play, and he's coming in and striking you there. And that's what I kind of see from Martinelli, is that little style of play similar to Mbappe from that regard.
Interesting.
John, do you want to have anything on that before we move on?
I'm in agreement there. I think that it's the only problem I see with him on the left is what you do with Aubameyang, and then in turn Lacazette. I think if you put Martinelli on the left, Aubameyang goes centrally, and Lacazette doesn't have a role in the team anymore. And which is, look, if that's what it comes to, I think that there's a dangerous kind of interplay on the left, because we know Aubameyang is dangerous there, and we know that Martinelli can play well in the box centrally. You know, we scored like header, he scored goals in the box like as a poacher, so we know that would work. It's just a question of being able to make it and take some other players off. So it would be a different tactical approach, but I think Martinelli, Aubameyang, and then Pepe is our best goal threat of an attacking front three. There's more goals in that than I think with Lacazette, as much as he offers off the ball. If we're looking at it from a goal scoring perspective, that front three of Martinelli on the left interplaying with Lacazette or Aubameyang and switching off, Aubameyang centrally drifting out to the left sometimes and coming back in, and then Pepe on the right with the cut-ins to maybe a Martinelli who's come into the box or something like that.
But then you lose that tracking back, I think, when Lacazette's not on, and Pepe plays better with Ashley, with Ainsley, Maitland-Niles. I always bastardize his name. With Maitland-Niles, which has been evident, like clear as day, that he plays so much better with him than he does with Bellerin. So that presents other problems. But very interesting to see how that will play out when Martinelli is back.
Yeah, and one just really quick point, one way that they could potentially fix that, if you decide to drop Lacazette for argument's sake, is to make the midfield a little bit more creative, and then you don't have to worry about someone dropping back and dealing with as much as Lacazette has to do. If we're more controlling in the midfield and we're able to create more from further back, then we don't need that player holding up play as much.
Yeah,
before Josh says that, I just think Martinelli will play everywhere. He's young. His career can be completely refined at any point. He'll play any position you want, and that's how he'll fit in for the next few years. Josh?
Yeah, I was going to say, on where you ultimately see Martinelli is also a question of what you see our situation with Aubameyang and Lacazette as well, because I'm of the opinion that I'd get Aubameyang to sign an extended contract with us, but I'd be selling him at the end of next season with 2 years left on his deal.
Who would you be selling?
Aubameyang. I'd sell Aubameyang at the end of next season.
Sign him up, sell him next season.
So we heard the big thing from Don Raul that, if players have got 2 seasons left on their contract, it's either sign a new one or get out. Yeah. And Aubameyang has shown, and to be fair, proven me wrong. Not that he needs to prove anything to, a ginger kid in the Northwest, that he needs to do anything for his footballing ability. But I thought, to be honest, he wouldn't find the role on the left-hand side. He wouldn't become as creative and his pace would go. I think there's a bit more to him. He's brought more to his game, from his early career.
He misses more chances. I'd like to see the stats, because think about how prolific he's been, but he also needs like 5 or 6 to bury one. So you can imagine if his ratio on finishing was a little bit stronger. And I'd also love to see, I haven't looked at the data, but I know there's someone out there that has it, what his finishing is when he is playing on that left side, when he's playing down the middle, and what that looks like. Because optics wise, he always looks far more comfortable and far more dominant when he's playing down the middle and he's supported either side. And that's why I like the idea of him being down the middle, Saka on one side, Martinelli on the other. Then you've got that strong, that player behind him. Am I dreaming?
No, that's what I want. Imagine that. Oh, that'd be
and who is that player in the hole there? I mean,
well, I think you've already named him, but you've put him out on one of the wings.
Put him on the wing? Yeah.
I think it's Saka. I think he comes inside. We've seen him a couple of times under Arteta, I think before the big games, that when Arteta was trying to experiment with who he could put in a 3 before he went to the 3 at the back, 3 in midfield, Saka was one of those players. I think we might see, if he can't get who he wants, we have to settle for a wide player instead of a central midfielder, that Saka comes in and fulfills that role for us.
Did we see a bit of that when the wing backs were going forward? He was able to then do his inverted left winger, if that's a thing, where they move across the pitch inwards. Did he do that?
It was the Liverpool game, where he was, because I think we played more of a 4 at the back than a 5 at the back against Liverpool, because Saka wasn't really a left wing back and he wasn't really a left winger and he wasn't really in left midfield. He was almost doing a job on Salah, I think. Yeah, Salah's on their right-hand side. So it's interesting to kind of look back and see what was kind of happening in that game. But he had a very specific role, kind of a floating role in there, but he wasn't part of that back, like, defensive line, and he wasn't really part of the wing.
We're kind of lucky to have this talent that's rising, because when you think about our financial situation, right? When you think about what we bought Martinelli for, but when you think about Saka, and yes, we've given him a new contract, but that's one that is super well deserved. I'm not sure what's happening with Smith Rowe right now. I haven't got up to speed with what he's doing. Obviously, Mavropanos is going back out for a loan. But you do have someone who's young like Tierney, who didn't come through the Arsenal ranks, but again, when you look at him, and if he can stay injury free, he looks like a bargain in today's market for the amount of money that we paid for him. Like, he's got some, if you're looking at this as a chess game, he's definitely got pieces, and he can definitely regurgitate the money if he sells the Kolasinacs of the world, and the Ozil's going to be just get rid of the wages, right? But what those wages can bring back to us as a team is huge. There's definitely room for some good business based on what we have and how we can maybe, find good deals and loans. Like, I think Cedric will come good. I think he's had some injury problems, but he's a quality Premier League player that I think is going to be really important for us next season, So I think it's interesting in terms of what we've inherited, what we have versus what we have to sell, and how we have to kind of reinvent the team, guys.
I think Guendouzi is going to help us massively in that regard. I mean, although his attitude problem has been well documented. There's not a manager, at the top of world football that doesn't think that they could straighten him out. They're all, if Guendouzi is arrogant, there's a more arrogant manager out there that thinks that they could do it and will have the funds to straighten him out. And that money.
Is it a mistake? Is that going to be a mistake?
Selling Guendouzi? I mean, I'd say it in the same way. Selling Anelka, was that a mistake? It got us a new training ground, and the training ground did us wonders. Guendouzi's going to build us a new midfield. So I think, I think.
So what, you're expecting 40? Even though people know we're desperate. So think about how teams know we want to get rid of him, right? Business-wise. He's now 25 million versus 40, no?
Perhaps,
I think we've slashed his price because we've been vocal about his deficiencies and misgivings as a player.
The thing is, though, there's not only going to be one suitor for him. That's where the low fee will come from, is if only one team comes and says, yeah, we'll take Guendouzi. But I don't think that will be the case. You'll have the likes of a PSG. You'll have the likes of, Juventus. They might come in, probably in Inter Milan. Conte. Well, he's a Conte player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Every day of the week. And currently he's raiding the Premier League for rejects and troubled players, shall we say. So I think there's definitely a market for him. And that's the thing that, although the starting bits might be low, the fact that we can then go, well, you know what, someone will bid higher, and then we can just bring the price up. The process will take longer, but I think we'll still get a fee that we'll be happy with, to be honest. It's not like we're trying to get rid of Sokratis. I think that's a different kettle of fish. That is just take him kind of.
Olympiacos will take him for a kebab and a little daramo salada, don't you worry.
I hope so.
Thunder Road says, don't trust someone with 2 Premiership clubs like Josh. He downplays Nketiah, so Brighton can scoop him and Mainsley up for a bargain price. I'm surprised he probably would have. And John,
I wouldn't get rid of AMN.
You unmuted yourself.
I wouldn't have AMN at Brighton. Sorry.
I wouldn't get rid of him.
It's too similar to Steven Alzate.
No one cares about your Brighton, Josh, and your Brighton notepad that caused us to lose a bloody game because you're a swine. John, what did you want to say?
No, I think that we were talking about Saka a little bit, and it just kind of made me think about what an amazing player he is. And I was just kind of reminiscing on it and then remembering as to how he even came to be in this first team. Besides his hard work, it was actually Emery that gave him the chance, which is kind of interesting. A lot of people, for good reason, like to say all sorts of stuff about Emery, but one of the things that I always said that was the shining light of his tenure here was being able to give us players like Saka a chance and really allow him to shine. So I just wanted to add that because it was something I thought while they were discussing it.
Right, okay, jolly good.
Poor Unai. Unai was given a hard time. Sorry.
He just got a new job. Of
course he did. And he knows Spanish football, so yeah.
I noticed Santi got out of there as soon as he found out that he was coming to Spanish. He'll be playing right back. Right, so I've got to scroll down on my notes here. Don't need emergency topics. They're safe for the moment. Josh, new shirt numbers. Tell our wonderful listeners about the 2 shirt numbers, what we were saying before the show started.
Oh, yes. So Saka's lost to 7. So hopefully he'll be a little bit quicker because, there's less fabric on the back of his shirts now. And he's our new number 7. So he's taken that from Nketiah, who? Yeah, exactly. They went
Alexis first, right? Alexis, Nketiah.
Alexis, Nketiah. I mean, I'm just, it's unfortunate because I've moved all my shirts that used to be under my desk and I would fish through it to find the Thomas Rositzky one that's in there. So that was our last proper number 7. And so he's changed his shirt number. Mkhitaryan is at Roma. I don't know what's going on with that deal. Seems a bit shady, but sure, it's Mkhitaryan. Of course, there's a shady deal involved. And then it's Saliba, who still hasn't kicked a ball for us, and he's changed his shirt number already. And he has taken, I think so. And he's taken number 4 from Mohamed El Neni, who I thought,
dominant.
This is a. I don't know. I'm going to ask a question to the rest of the panel. If you think, let's put it this way, I'm going to ask it. Does El Neni get into our midfield at the moment?
Oh, stop. No, come on.
Maybe.
Against Villa, he would have done.
Yeah, my thought
It's
was
like
if he
that
was
relationship.
younger-
It's that really, it's
Yeah.
like that relationship where you want to move on and you keep going back and you're like, I can't do it anymore.
Although, to be fair, it would be great to have him play a team like Watford right now, right? Like, just throw him in the midfield.
Last game.
Yeah, so Xhaka and Ceballos cannot get injured or something. And then
It's
yeah.
Sorry, John. Yeah, it's just a huge one on just
He's a good squad player, but he's a full international regularly with Egypt. He's had a half decent loan to Besiktas. They're a decent Europa League team, and he's not going to want to come back to Arsenal and sit on his arse, is he? No matter how much money he gets, and there's not enough hairspray at the club for him. Guendouzi and Louis.
He cut his hair though, didn't he? He chopped it all off, didn't he?
That was static. There's the reason why. They said if there's any head clashes, there could be a permanent injury. Right, we've got the Watford game at the weekend. John, what's your thoughts on that? And are you worried that we'd love to see? We hate Troy Deeney. I personally hate the Pozzos. I've got no problem with Watford. I need to see Elton John then. I've got no problem with Elton John either. I think he's fantastic. He's got all of his best albums. I love them. And the film as well, the Elton John film. People go watch it. It's fucking
Rocket Man.
amazing. Oh,
Yeah,
I loved it. And the Queen one, that's fantastic as well. So are you worried?
Isn't that the Queen one?
No, that's Bohemian Rhapsody.
The film. No, he's talking about a film about Queen.
Oh, well, the one with Billy Connolly.
And John one. It's gone over your head. It's gone over your head, Danny.
I've lost it. I'm thinking of asking John a decent question. You won't shut up.
Queen's Elton John. I mean, it's safe to joke about stuff like that these days, no?
Archie has summed it up for me. Relegate Deeney. Nothing more satisfying, John.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great, right? That'd be the catharsis and the just like schadenfreude that we would get from watching Dean crying on the pitch. I mean, come on, that's like stuff of dreams right there. Look, I want to see that happen because it means that we beat them. Because if they beat us, not only are we going to be upset, but then they put themselves in a good position, and Deeney's happy. Deeney happy equals frowny face. Deeney relegated equals smiley face, and that's kind of where I'm coming from in my in-depth analysis on that. Is that I want to watch them being upset for all. That's the biggest thing. Also, I don't want anyone to get injured. I'm worried that we're going to go into that game and that something's going to happen. But they're going to play reserved. I think they're going to have to, because that game doesn't mean anything for us on the table. Absolutely nothing for us. So what we need to do going in there is just maybe get some players some time to get fit that might be squad bench players that are going to come in so that they have a little bit of game time on their under their belts coming into the FA Cup final. But all eyes are going to be that FA Cup final. I do not know how Arteta is going to manage to get these players into that game, knowing that it means absolutely nothing to us, and knowing that there's going to be a cup final on the horizon.
What do you reckon about the game? Would you risk resting players because, like, John don't want getting injured, or would you want to go out there and relegate Watford in style? Because if Villa are away at West Ham and all they need is a point, and then Watford are down.
I care less about Watford. I care less about whether they get relegated or not. Would it be nice, a bit like Stoke, those kinds of teams? Yes. Have we given Deeney his comeuppance since he made the whole cajones, whatever you're calling it these days, whether you live in the UK or the US comment? I think we've given him his afters since he said that. To me, it's all about winning the FA Cup now. It's not about league position. We're not going to qualify for Europe through the league, and we got to protect our players. And I think this is a nothing game for us. I don't care.
Yeah. Josh?
It'd be nice to get some form up, I think, go with some nice momentum into the cup final from that kind of Villa result. It'd be nice for us to, I think, get a couple of goals, get Lacazette's eye in, get Aubameyang's eye in for the kind of final. I think going into it, if we came off the back of another loss, we'd probably go in as greater underdogs, and that might help us. But it'd be nice from like a fan's point of view if we could go in and have some real momentum up into that FA Cup final.
But we went into Villa with momentum beating Liverpool and City. And we made a lot of changes and it didn't work right. In this game, it's about resting and protecting players. I think it's then down to Arteta to keep everyone up mentally.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go.
No,
say,
mate.
We've got a week between the two games. I think that's the difference. It was a couple of days between us playing Man City and going into the Villa game. I think in terms of getting fatigue out of the legs, I think we'd be fine from that. The only reason for us to field a weakened squad is if we expect Watford to come in and kick us 6 feet up into the air every opportunity, which, to be fair, we've mentioned it on Troy Deeney. He's not the he's not the nicest of opponents to come up against.
You should start Guendouzi.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we just do that. We put in Guendouzi and Ozil and we go, here you go, guys, there's your chance. And just see what happens.
You've mentioned the O word there, Josh.
Sorry.
It's like Beetlejuice.
Me and John had a really good chat. We went full tinfoil hat. We covered every possible scenario of why Ozil isn't playing for Arsenal and what's going on. So if you want to, I'm going to go and put the link to the podcast with me, John's podcast, where I was a guest on there. But Sophie and Josh, start with Josh. You two have a discussion about, you got 5 minutes, about what's going on with Ozil. We'll just sit here and look pretty.
Okay. Sorry, should I go and get some tin foil from the other side of the counter? Stick it on my head. Because to be fair, everyone hold your hats. I think Mesut Ozil's retired. I think that's what he's done. And he's just seeing out the rest of it.
Bloody part-time.
Yeah. No, I think we hold on to his image rights, and you can see everything he's doing at the moment is trying to build brand Ozil. We saw Andre Schürrle, one of his colleagues from the World Cup win, retire at 29 earlier in the month. Per Mertesacker has said that ever since he won the World Cup, and he didn't really have a big part in that side in terms of on the field. He played 4 or 5 minutes of the final. Mertesacker came on as a sub, and he said he couldn't get himself up for it, and it's the only reason he retired. Because to be honest, his game was never about pace. He could have easily still be playing at the moment, I think, Mertesacker, but chose to retire because the motivation isn't there. And I think it's exactly the same with Ozil. I just think he's retired, to be honest. And I wouldn't be surprised at the end of his deal. He's not going to go to another club. He's happy in London. Doesn't want to go anywhere else. Yeah, that's where I go. What about you, Sophie? Do you think anything?
If he does anything
crazy as that,
I know that's a bold statement. But in hindsight, and when you look at his style and his effort, yes, he seems like a player who's completely retired. 100% agree with you. Even when he's been playing for us, he's been playing like a retiree, right? The Ozil thing is just such a mixed bag because he really could have been an amazing legend. And I think we saw his best years when he was playing with Santi and Alexis. It was poetry. It was beautiful. And he's always been a player that has excelled around great players. Germany in the World Cup teams, Real Madrid. Look at the players he was surrounded with at Real Madrid, how he excelled. And when he came to Arsenal, he was then asked to be the leader. And he's not a leader. He's a leader in his humanitarian efforts and what he believes as a human being. He's doing some amazing things off the pitch. But on the pitch, he just wasn't the player to drive a team. That was never Ozil's mantra. And I think that we put the world on his shoulders a little bit like we did with Fabregas and some other players. And after Santi's injury and then Alexis, I'm not sure that we set the team up that was optimal for him, but at the same time, he also never put the effort in. And then what did we do? We panicked, right? Because the team were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. If we sold Ozil or didn't keep him, we would have been absolutely killed because Alexis had already gone to United. And so we felt we were hostage to him and his marketing capabilities on a global level. Because you go look at the numbers. Ozil, Harry Kane is this superstar. Ozil has 3 times the followers on Instagram. Ozil is a global icon to a lot of people. And that came in to play for Arsenal. He made a lot of marketing dollars for us. And losing that isn't easy. It's not.
And we own his image rights. That's another huge thing. The reason why we pay him £350,000 a week is because we own his image rights.
And the money we make from that.
If people want to know how much image rights bring you in, just say the guy that owns Valencia owns 20% stake in Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's how he made his fortune and accelerated his fortune up, was purely because he's got 20% of CR7. And we've got Mesut Ozil, and we've got his kind of thing in there. So.
And Josh, can you think of a time, a moment, like even Alexis Sanchez, I can point to games, even Santi, I can point to games with Ozil. You know, everyone keeps bringing up his amazing performance against Ludogorets or the 3-3 against Liverpool. That was amazing. He was phenomenal in that game. We were down, and when we came back, that was like the Ozil I love. But in terms of consistency against the big teams and in big moments, he never lived up to it. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that he couldn't on his own. And when he didn't have the supporting cast around him, he failed. And the sooner we move on from his legacy, whatever that legacy is, I don't think it's a great legacy. I think we've invested a lot of money in a player and we've won FA Cups. And did we win those FA Cups because of him? I don't think so.
Teams that are going on the verge of getting relegated and one that did get relegated.
Well, I think he gave us a mentality. I think he brought something in because we were just a team that was going through the motions. I think we saw just from his debut, if I want to say rightly, it was against Sunderland. The thing that bringing in Mesut Ozil brought to the rest of the side, I think it took us up a level and then getting us to the point of winning a trophy, getting that monkey off our back of, was it 9 or 10 seasons without a trophy? I think that's the biggest thing he brought to Arsenal was the change in mentality, which isn't necessarily what you want from a player when you pay £42.5 million for him. But we needed it. We got into our winning ways, and we did see, and we have seen some good moments from him. There's the Man United, the 3-0. We absolutely destroyed them in the first half, and Mesut Ozil was kind of key to that whole performance. We can find loads of them. I think that Archie has said that the club has failed him equally. I think there was a time when we didn't bring strikers in that helped him. But then who turned up after that? Aubameyang and Lacazette. There you go. There's two world-class forwards, and they currently in the same squad as them. How can he not feed Aubameyang? We were saying, you know what he needs? He needs a quick, fast striker that he slides balls through over the back. Either over the top of the defence or slide rule passes out from the wing, and he'd set up Aubameyang. He doesn't want that donkey Giroud because it cost him his assist record. I think that's the bigger thing. It's why can't, prior, you could go, the team was a problem. Potentially, that was Ozil's excuse. Ozil doesn't have that excuse now. We've got the forwards that we need. And then we've got players who aren't great with the ball. So it's not like he's losing assists to, say, Guendouzi. He's not losing assists to Guendouzi. Guendouzi would happily pass Ozil the ball so Ozil could play the better pass.
He's become a victim of himself. Okay. Yeah. I think Ozil, there was a shift in his life after he was made the villain in his own country. And I don't care what anybody says, that takes a toll on a human being. We get pissed off if someone says something negative on Twitter or they disagree with us or we're like, what the hell is your problem? Think about how he was made to be the culprit for everything that was about Germany's failure. Okay. And then I'm going to go out on a limb here because we're living in a world and in a society where, we're trying to be as fair as possible to all cultures and all ethnicities. And I think there's part of Ozil that felt like he was under attack because of being an immigrant from Turkey and all that jazz. And there was part of him that acted a little bit like the victim. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, as a Greek Cypriot person, to see someone who I really admired as a footballer standing next to a person like a Dogan, who is deemed somewhat of a dictator and has done dodgy things in this world, I think a lot of people lost respect for him because he's supposed to be this humanitarian that understands world culture and people and helping. And he's got this man not only as a friend, but the best man at his wedding. And since then, it just all seems to have gone pear-shaped for him. Mentally, I'm not sure he's superly a strong person, because I think the way he's dealt with things, you can see that, and it's indicative of his behavior. And sources had told me during that time with Unai Emery at Arsenal that his PR and the way he handled everything, it was to completely undermine Unai. And that was known. He's not been a good boy. And his behavior hasn't helped him, and it's affected him as a footballer. He just hasn't helped himself at all. So make of that what you will. I don't know, but Ozil's a much more complex situation than any of us can think. This is more than football. This is something that has been brewing over, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Because he's such a big name, people want to use him for one reason or another. Well, there you go. John's got to go in 5 minutes, haven't you, John?
Yeah, I do.
How would you rate out of 10 their Ozil discussion compared to ours?
I think it hit almost everything. I don't know if we mentioned the carjacking as another thing, because I don't know if it's 100% clear at the reason why that happened. I mean, I think that money probably might have had something to do with it, but it might have been something else. It could have been political. I don't really, I don't think they would make any of that 100% public. So there's a lot of things that went into this whole Ozil thing, but it was interesting to see that they pretty much hit almost everything we did as well, which is great, because it kind of reinforced the tinfoil hat that I put on in the middle of the podcast. Because look, I think that there's a lot of stuff going on with Ozil right now that is not football related, that bleeds into his footballing life. He also just had a kid, which I'm sure puts things in perspective for you as to what you're going to do with your future and where your values are. So I think I would give it a 10 out of 10.
Very good. Right. We're going to give. We all know that Ozil is a human being as well as a footballer, but being football fans, we look at it from a football point of view. And other people may go, he's such a big star amongst, because he's one of the most important Muslim players there are. And so maybe people are trying to use that angle to try and appeal to certain people, to maybe a little bit of astroturfing going on, which is a really good term, which a lot of people are up to. We don't know. We just look at it mainly from the point of, we're Arsenal fans, he plays for Arsenal, and it hasn't worked as well as it looked like it would have been in the beginning. But someone in the chat made a really good point. We were after Hishwan. We didn't even want Ozil. Ozil was available, so thought we'd have him. So, but if I think that the point that I made on John's show was Petr Cech's to blame for all of this lot. And if you want to know why, go listen to John's podcast and give it a subscribe. He's on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube and all those other wonderful places. Our very own Femi's turned off. Here we go. What does Femi say? Sometimes players just switch off mentally and have retired in all but words. We've seen it over the years. Let's be honest. There you go.
And let's be honest, we all become disenchanted with our jobs sometimes, don't we? Mm-hmm. Football is a human too. I mean,
I'm struggling now.
Stuff happens in life.
It is. Right.
Spot on.
John, question for you before you go from Marissa from, I don't know where is San Diego? That's near you, isn't it?
So it's in California.
Southern California, about an hour and 20 minutes from where I live.
She supports San Diego Royal, I think, from her tweets. As well.
Bless.
She was meant to be on last week, but her dog wasn't well. She says to you, John, or not to you, but I'm giving you it. Do you think Alba stays? He's in a lot of their promotional material for the new kit, and I feel like if he was gone, they wouldn't use him in the promos. That's a very good question.
I think that he stays. I think that Arteta probably has done enough to convince him. I hope that he stays. I would imagine that he's been made clear that he's going to be essential to this rebuild and some stability there. It's clear that he has the captaincy material to lead a squad, especially of younger players who can look up to him. With respect to how much you should weigh the fact that he showed up in the materials, in the kit launch and everything, I don't read too much into that, just because they're contractually obligated to do that whether or not they're leaving. So there's certain things that they have to do regardless from a legal perspective of whether they're going to be at this club or not. That's not part of the negotiation. That there's a transfer of those image rights that come with a move to another club. But as far as he's still an Arsenal player as of when he took those pictures, which we've seen players take kit launches and then they get sold in the summer. We've seen it happen, and that's the reason why. It's because they have to take that picture. But that being said, don't let it freak you out. I do not think he's going to go. I think that they'll work it out. At least I hope.
Definitely. The recent form, I think, may have warmed the cockles of his heart. Right, John, you've got to get going 1 minute earlier than what you said you needed to go. So it still needs to go at past?
Yeah, I have a minute.
Okay, well, you can hang around. Good.
Yeah. If I don't get to say it, it was a great chat, and thank you for having me on.
Excellent. Good.
I was going to add on to the back of that answer as well, that there's other players, that you can still buy like a Sokratis shirt is still available. They will print Sokratis 5 on the back of your Arsenal kit. And if you think he's here at the end of next season, that's another thing.
Yeah, I think on that note, because I think that was an excellent point, I do got to go. So cheers, everyone. Thank you. And the chat was great. Everyone in the chat was wonderful. All right, bye, everyone.
And soon. Cheers. Oh, thank God he's gone. What a horrible man. Carry on, Josh. You were saying that.
No, that was, to be fair, it's the end of it. It's the fact that, although we see the players that we might sell, the kind of high-profile ones, the ones we didn't see in the photo shoot, Arsenal will still happily take your 80 quid if you want a player issue shirt
for that.
Exactly, for you to have Sokratis written on the back of it.
Totally. It's irrelevant who they have out pimping the shirts. Obviously, they're going to have Oba and Lacazette, and they're going to squeeze every marketing inch they can out of them until they do leave. I mean,
and we've just said about Mesut Ozil. If you want to sell a few million shirts in the Middle East, you're going to stick Mesut Ozil on.
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah, that was you bowled me a googly there, Josh, with he's retired, but they're hanging on to him because they own the image rights. I'm thinking that's really good. Like someone said here, Per retired mid-season. He did, and he came back for the cup final because we had nobody else to play. Gary Neville, he retired mid-season and actually stopped playing. Robbie Savage retired 3 years before he told anybody.
Dixon was one from memory. Danny, didn't he retire mid-season?
Seaman did as well. He went to Man City, got injured and retired mid-season. So quite a few players have gone, well, I can't play anymore and retired, haven't they? So wouldn't that be weird? And so you think that he has retired, but he's not going to tell anyone he's retired until the end of the contract?
I've decided to sell both of your image rights and I'm going to become a millionaire. Okay.
Have you got one of me laying on the bed, or have you got one of me in the bath with rubber ducky?
I've got this whole idea for both of you. It's a discussion for offline, but let me just say, we're going to become millionaires, as Del Boy said.
Bulgarian Gooner makes a point there. He says Scholes retired and then came back. Phil Macker says he retired during a match.
And Scholes was crap when he came back, bless him. He was not good, was he?
K-Man makes a good point. It's only 11 months left to Ozil's contract ends. It's not 12 months.
I mean, what's another $25 million, right? I mean...
3 or 4 days, 10 months. God, they're flying by. No, he's not doing anything, is he? Right, we're going to move on to some questions because it's 9:30.
Wow.
You, Sophie, from Omar Kahili. I want to say he's not Welsh, is he? It's not Kahili. Probably Khalil. That is it, Khalil. I'm not going to say that again. I'm leaving it at that one. He says, when crowds are back and Arteta can shout out instructions the whole game, do you think that will influence our performances? We can't shout out instructions the whole game. Fuck, sorry, Omar. I'm shit at reading.
He has benefited from the water breaks. I've been very anti-water break, but every time we have a water break, it seems to have been effective for us. I don't think it makes a difference, to be honest with you. I think that... he's been used to coaching with crowds, and now without them, it's just kind of like being in a training session, and players know what their roles are. But, is it going to be different? Yes, but that's when I think Arsenal need to identify leaders on the pitch to get his message across, which I think we've lacked greatly across the board.
That was from Khalil, and I'm not putting that because he's been kind enough. He's in bloody Norwich. Khalil, you're banned. We've already got 2 Gooners in Norwich. We're not having a bloody third one. Or you have to go and kill Ellis or Nick. It's one or the other. You let us know which one. Well, actually, we'll probably see it on the news. I'll personally go for Nick because he's a bit chubby and can't run away. Right, yeah, that's a good answer. Now then, Noir Confidential has been away for a while and we've missed his questions, so he's come back with a vengeance and given us 3. First one for you, Josh, Ozil-ish. I haven't planned this. He says, today we've seen some changes regarding squad numbers for next season. Do you think there's a chance the club will give Ozil's number 10 to somebody else? It really rubs me up the wrong way. Now, we don't know Noir Confidential, but I do know it's not someone you rub up the wrong way, Josh. Have you been rubbed?
I can't confirm or deny reports.
Noir does not count.
Noir Confidential has rubbed me up and down inappropriately. There is an ongoing court case.
Hold on, Bill, were you in Norwich as well? We're going to have a SummerSlam. No, a Royal Rumble. Go on, John.
Yeah. Sorry. What were we saying? Oh, Ozil on number 10. We'd need to bring in a creative midfielder first before we think about giving number 10 to anybody else. And I don't think we're linked with anybody that I would say should get a number 10, and I don't think anybody else in the squad immediately screams, yeah, I'll give you number 10.
Jackie Wilshere, Arteta loves him, and he's fit. Get it back.
No, thank you, Danny.
Jackie Wilshere. Don't know why I did that.
No, I don't. And I think if it's one of those that it's if Ozil has retired from Speak or No Speak, his big brand is M10. So I'm sure he'd take a little, you might drop his wages a little bit if we say, yeah, if for him to keep the number 10 shirt, he may pay us to keep hold of it for just a season. Who knows? Because it's all part of image rights.
How crazy is it that this guy, everyone keeps saying, oh, don't talk about his money, but he's earning 350 grand a week and he's not playing. Arteta's not even choosing him to be in the squad. What does that tell you about where this guy's maybe mental is or where his current form is? I mean, Arteta is not a fool. He will use players that will help him win. That's his job. This is crazy, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the terms of his money, we don't know the full breakdown of that. Does that 350k? We know it includes his image rights. Does it include, his appearance fees? Are we paying him actually less? Performances and stuff. Was that the big headline figure? We pay Ozil up to £350,000 a week. But
only
who knows? Who knows?
Ryan is in the chat, the Mr. Arsenal podcast, another one of my podcasts that I've been on. A very nice bloke, does some really good quizzes. Got one on tomorrow, which hopefully I'm going to be on. It is they give out clues to players, and I should have been won the last one, but Ryan mugged me off, so I didn't win. And there you go. There's Ryan's channel. Go give it a subscribe, a tickle, a like, whatever it is that you do. Bulgarian Gooner said, yes, Josh, there is a number 10. It's Emilio Smith-Ronio.
I like that one.
And even worse news, Phil Macker lives in Norwich. So, there's going to be a fight. But I'll watch out because Ellis is dirty. He's a biter. His missus told me that. He's a dirty biter.
It's kind of crazy to think, though, that shirt number's up for grabs in the manner in which it is at a team like Arsenal, in my opinion, based on who's there and maybe, who we might be looking at. It's kind of crazy, considering some of the players that we've had who've operated, in that role over the years.
Was I right in thinking it was dormant for a few seasons?
For two?
Yeah, I can't
before
think
Ozil came?
No, Jack Wilshere had it before.
Sorry,
Ozil.
no, Jack. Yeah.
Prior to Jack, I thought it was vacant. Danny's probably got all of those stats. But between Bergkamp and Jack Wilshere, who had the number 10 shirt?
We should have been retired. If Birmingham are retiring the number 22 shirt for that kid that went to Dortmund, we should retire the number 10 for Mr. Dennis Bergkamp, the man that this podcast is named after. Come on.
There we go. They've come through. I knew why. I'd forgotten. I'd blanked it out of the memory.
Gallas.
I forgot Gallas played for us.
There has been no Gallas.
Everyone forgets that Gallas played for us.
There we go. It's Gallas and Van Persie. There we go. There's two players that I've blanked out of living memory from me, because I don't consider them Arsenal players.
Femster says, we cannot go a whole season with the manager being asked about Ozil every single week. It's draining for the fans, let alone the boss. We know who's to blame there, don't we, Josh? Lift Quiff.
Oh, yeah, this is all Simon. It's the only question he turns up to the press conferences with is what's going on with Mesut Ozil and can I touch Mesut Ozil?
And just like in Shooting Stars, they wouldn't let it lie. He wouldn't let it lie.
I think he's done a really good job of diffusing it. I don't feel like it's been out there for us as much because we beat Liverpool, we beat City. You know, if we were losing in those big games, I think he'd become a bigger issue, but I've kind of forgotten about him.
Yeah, one way or another, on the field, we've made the talking point bigger than Mesut Ozil, be it beating City or Liverpool, losing to Spurs and Aston Villa.
Question for you from Noir Confidential. Our academy has produced great midfield and offensive talents. Why do we, as well as other English clubs, have such a problem with producing or identifying good young central defenders? Is it a case of clubs relying on systems rather than individuals? Good luck with that, because I've got no idea.
I think it's a case of clubs relying on marketability and making money and monetizing. And they think that if they put certain players into certain roles, that they can then promote selling shirts or promote that particular player in certain markets. And this is where I think, and I'm a huge proponent of the 5 subs, there has to be at least 2 homegrown players or 2 players from the academy. Because I think in order to ensure that Arsenal's culture is sustained, this is why we've lost our DNA a little bit and our culture. We lost that core of the Adams of the world, the Keowns, the Winterburns, the Dixons. But then that was taught and translated onto the Vieiras and the Bergkamps and the Perez's and the Lundbergs of the world and the Thierry Henrys and Fabregas even. And so I think it's really important that we promote young players. If they're good enough, they should play. But I also think that one of the reasons behind it is marketability and monetization. It's my opinion.
Josh, do you want to have a little tickle on that?
Yeah, I think no youth academy brings through an entire squad of positions at any one time. You'll tend to find that they bring out, they have like a spate of forwards that come out and then a spate of midfielders. And yeah, for a while, we haven't brought central defenders in, but then that's because we've relied so heavily on technical players that you tend not to get centre backs out of that, because if they're good enough defensively, you know what? We've had a need in defensive midfield.
The last half was Carl Bartley, currently got promotion with West Brom last night. And we had Sam Ajayi from Charlton, had him for a couple of years, another decent one who's also playing for West Brom. So we've had a couple, but not really been given the chances, have they?
But are they good enough?
That's the thing, exactly. We've got Medley, who's sitting in the backgrounds. This season seems to not be necessarily his season, but we'll see next year. If we get into Europa League, we've got those kind of games where you can blood young players. That's a potential, I think, for him to come through. But as you say, let's just go through our forward line at the moment. That's currently what we've been producing. We've got Saka, Nelson, Smith Rowe, Nketiah, Bellerin, Tyrese John-Jules.
Bellerin is one that I really hope stays.
I hope so, but we have to sell Nketiah because that's the problem. He's blocked.
Mm-hmm.
We have to sell Nketiah to get Bellerin in. It's that toss-up because that's the player that's taking his game time, to be honest, through the middle. So yeah, and I think that's the problem. We're just bringing through forwards at the moment. And what will happen probably, I say in probably 10 years' time, what will probably happen is we'll have this question, but people will say, why aren't we bringing in forwards? We keep bringing in defenders. We've got loads of defenders and we can't find a forward on the transfer market either for love nor money. It's cyclical. It's just what happens with youth academy football generally.
Do you think that possibly quite a few of the big defenders that have been sold that haven't come through have had time in the lower leagues? Do you think that kind of makes the man, as the saying is, that coming through the academy, because academy football is ruined now with this Premier League 1 and Premier League 2 and all that other stuff. I don't think it's like the old days where you would be playing, and plus the rules they brought in where you can only have 2 or 3 over 21-year-old players. in the old times, the reserves, everybody could play in the reserves against all the other teams regularly. You had the cups and all those other things. I think if you're going to play a few like Maguire, didn't he come up through the leagues with Leicester?
No, Maguire, he was at Hull.
Well,
and before that, I want to say Barnsley, but I'm not sure. But as you say, like if we think of the England centre-back partnerships or just defensive partnerships, Kyle Walker came through at Sheffield United. I want to say Danny Rose was at Sheffield United
yeah.
And then, most of them have all done their time in the lower leagues and come through academy rather than come through academies. But then we saw players like Eric Garcia. He came through an academy. John Stones came through. Actually, no, that's a bad example because he came from Barnsley. He didn't come out of Everton's youth academy.
He came from Bolton, and he does look like he doesn't look about when it comes to getting stuck in.
But that's just about giving a decent loan. We could get the same thing from, say, to be honest, I don't want to put too much pressure on Medley, but he is our only centre-back prospect at the moment, other than Ballard, I think, is the other one, who was on loan at Swindon this season, Danny?
And we've got the other who's on loan in Ireland, who's been extended for the rest of the extended season. So
I think it's all about seeing how the loans work instead of saying, this player's done great things when they're at an actual club. I think it's all about the system and building partnerships. That's the key thing.
Partnerships. Boom.
Partnerships is what makes a centre-back pairing. Van Dijk might be a great defender, but put a partnership with me in the middle of a central defence. Liverpool aren't keeping clean sheets, trust me. However much I rate myself, I'm not a great central defender.
And his trajectory changed when Lovren didn't start every game with him, right? I mean,
absolutely.
These are facts.
As soon as you find a good partner to be with and you build that partnership up, Koscielny and Mertesacker, from our point of view, the fact that Arsenal worked so well with our, big back four and back fives because they were so heavily drilled. And it was, it was a Bold and old O'Leary, and then it was Adams eventually coming in for O'Leary, that we had that kind of...
It was Adams and Bold, and then Bold came in to replace O'Leary.
Oh, there we go.
Look how hard it is. Look how hard it is to follow up when you do find great partnerships. Look at Man United since Vidic and Ferdinand, and they've struggled. They've struggled in the new era under Moyes and Van Gaal, and they've not really found a perfect partnership at the back. And you could argue a little bit like us, a little bit like Liverpool. They've had a great front line, some really talented players up front, but if you can't defend, you don't win anything. I mean, I say that Manchester City have been able to do it because of possession, right? Different type of football, but at the end of the day, you still have to have a great defense and a great goalkeeper. Ederson has been good for City and he saved them. De Gea was great for United for a while when their defense was lacking, but now he's suffering and he's exposed because the defense is crap. So he's more exposed. We've managed to gain points this season because Leno saved us. And to be honest with you, everyone should be raving about Emery. I mean, he's been unbelievable coming into a situation, so much pressure when we're on our knees, and the fact that he's performed the way he has, what a leader he has been for us. So partnerships, rhythm at the back is so important. Trust. You can see now our players really trust him. Tierney didn't trust Kolasinac after that bad pass against Tottenham. It was over in that game. Trust is so important. Josh brings up a great point about partnerships and trust. It's huge.
Just talking about the thing, Maguire spent one season in the Championship with Sheffield United, 3 seasons in League One with Sheffield United before being sold to Hull for 2.5 million. And then we all know where he is now, a giant big slab head. Right, we need to move this on a little bit, if that's right with you two.
Yep. So coming up to the 2-hour mark.
Certainly is.
Wow.
We've got the minutes.
My fault. It's probably my fault.
Someone asked a good question. Who do you want from the playoffs? I think it was Thunder Road asked it. Here we go. Josh, we've talked about this beforehand. Who do you want to get promoted out of the 2 non-English teams and the 2 English teams?
I would like to see Brentford come up, to be honest. Bit of a change We've seen all the other teams recently in the Premier League. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see Brentford.
Sophie, who would you like to see come up?
I really wanted Forest, so I don't know anymore. Imagine Leeds and Forest both coming up. That would have been great. So now I just don't care.
There you go. Michael Hahnemann's chucking a bit in there about he's a Stevenage man. He said he was in the Sheffield United side that got spanked 4-0 by Stevenage. Harry Maguire was. I'm going to imagine the next message is going to be shit. No, he hasn't had anything. Oh, yeah, Loki says Brentford. And Don One says he wants Nottingham Forest.
Forest are out of it now, I think.
The
horrific result the other night was so sad.
It was. It's for the show. Right. We have a gentleman's nod, a lady's nod, and my gentleman nod is going. There's two of them. One's going to go to Arteta from me, saying thank you very much, and the other one's going to go to Emery. You sir had a poison chalice, as we know. Just ask David Moyes. You do not take over from a manager who's been there for 20 years, and then it all goes swimmingly. You were the fatted calf. You were sacrificed at the altar of Arsene Wenger. Good luck at Villarreal. You did some good stuff. Thank you. Josh, have you got anyone you'd like to give a gentleman's nod to?
This is always the thing I forget about that we do on the podcasts compared to the live show as a shout out, so I haven't got one.
What about Tom Selleck? Like your moustache, it's a wannabe Magnum PI. That is large. What you're doing
I'd like to say that, but that's a reference I've really kind of lost on me, to be honest. I'm not of the generation to get Magnum PI.
Oh my God! Wow.
Sorry.
Show my age, Danny.
Yeah, no, I loved it. That's often watch.
Sorry, I've got many references that I've made to it, but some of them.
He was in Friends. Do you remember him in Friends as Monica's boyfriend?
I have never watched an episode of Friends for very good reasons.
Oh my God, just stop. Okay.
I don't watch any show with canned laughter. No, thank you.
You. Right, Sophie, have you got a lady for anybody?
I'm going to give a shout out to the NWSL and the new We Are Angel City, the new female women's football team in Los Angeles. And the women's game is continuing to grow out here. So I want to give a shout out to them. And they've got a lot of owners like Natalie Portman, Evelyn Longoria, Jessica Chastain, Mia Hamm, a legend, and Abby Wambach, a football legend too, trying to really bring a team to LA and help grow the league here, because the US women's team is a force internationally, but domestically the game really needs some help. So that's who gets my shout out today.
Talking about that, many a time I spent hours on Wikipedia looking at the ladies that have played for Arsenal and looking back, and they've gone, hold on, they played for an American team once for one season, and then that team shut down. They've gone to another team that shut down, and the league shut down.
We need an end to that. And a little bit like when the Premier League started in 92, the old Division 1, it was good. People loved it. It was legendary. But the Premier League came in and money was everything. And that's what helped build the league. And that's what women's football needs too. So without that, it's not going to happen.
I agree with you. Right. So there you go. Again, there's Sophie's YouTube channel that she does with Amanda and Kevin Campbell. This week they had on Ian Stone. And he said Ian Snow. There's no such person. Ian Stoney from the Tuesday Club on. So that's their podcast. Go have a look. Go give it a follow. Subscribe. All these social medias need to have the same thing. You either subscribe or you follow. I can't cope with one. You need. I'm not even going to go into. I'm saying no. Right, this weekend's podcast live show after the Watford game. Josh, I take it you've got no idea who's on there other than Jace.
No, I'm on it. I know. I think I know who's on Watford. It was the other one, the cup final. I didn't know who else was on. It is Jason. It is me. I want to say then it is two of Carl, Chris, and John, but it could be all three of us. All three of them. Sorry. So it might be a bumper fiver of them. Who knows?
So I did say this was going to be an hour and a half, but we've got those minutes from StreamYard and we're using them like greedy little piggies. All right. Thank you much to John for joining us tonight. No problem, dude. Oh, bless him. That was me doing John impress. Thank you very much, Sophie, for coming on again. We're going to get you and Amanda to come on in the summer and have a little bit of a chat. And thank you to Tom Selleck. Tom, you've let yourself go a little bit.
What? Isn't he like in his 80s?
Please go Google him.
I will Google him afterwards. He's the guy in the Ferrari,
and then tweet
right?
me. Yeah, he's the
guy in the
Ferrari guy. Okay, cool. I know that much from him.
He may well have turned a few gentlemen in his time as well, because he's a bloody good look. Even now, he's a bloody good looking bloke. He is. So,
he appealed to both teams. Both
Okay.
Thunder says it's Sunday, so it's John Welsh Day. Could well be right.
That is true.
Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us in the chat box. Remember, go and subscribe to Sophie's YouTube channel and John's as well. Yes, and ours if you want. We actually had 30 subscribers in one day because we begged for subscribers after we beat Man City. It's below us, but it worked because people aren't listening. Our figures are dropping down to negative listeners. We had to pay people to not listen. That's how bad things got during COVID. So we'll be back on Sunday. Thank you very much for watching. We have been a Bergkamp Wonderland, and depending on how the FA Cup final goes, we could still be an Arsenal podcast this summer. Goodbye.